Feel better.
Well, my friends over there, and it's better.
Could be. Susan, can you hear us? Thank you.
Okay, well, the August 14th, 2023 Town of Ithaca Board Meeting. We'll start with pledge of allegiance. Pledge of Seems to have gone away, so that's good. So we'll start with persons to be heard. If there are members of the public who would like to address us, you can come up to the desk. And I don't think they need to hold into a microphone or anything. You should pick them up fine, right?
Yep.
And if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes, that would be good.
That one you will have to turn on.
But there is another mic there. You don't need to use it.
Can you? Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a mic right there. You can just talk.
Can you hear me?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Minner. I'm a concerned resident who lives in the town of Ithaca at 200 Road Street. And I'm also an associate professor in the Department of City and Regional Planning at Cornell, but I don't speak on behalf of Cornell. The Rainick Golf Course was identified within the town of Ithaca's comprehensive plan as an area of special interest. And it's an area that has been identified as being worthy of special consideration. But it's zoned at this point in time for low density residential suburban style development. In the midst of the local housing crisis and with the imperative to mitigate and adapt to climate change, I'm asking the town board to take a proactive stance in guiding development in the area. I and some of my neighbors have signed a document encouraging the town to look very carefully at the current situation. Portions of the Rainick Golf Course have recently been offered for sale. Although there has been recent movement toward a holistic plan through a planned unit development application, I don't think that the town of Ithaca should simply stand by and wait for a developer to propose just the right kind of visionary development that is needed for this incredibly important place within the town of Ithaca. Therefore, I signed a petition to encourage the town to ensure that there are special environmental and affordability provisions for this property. I think this could be accomplished multiple ways: through purchase of the property by the town, purchased by a land trust, through a new adopted conservation and zoning regulations, or through their special planning through the PUD overlay. I signed the petition, and this recommends that if the property ceases to be an 18-hole golf course, at least 50% of the property be given to the town of Ithaca, or purchased if necessary to be used as open and recreational space for the residents of the town and the village of Cayuga Heights. 2, the open space be contiguous with the golf course to the east and the unique natural area to the west to preserve a wildlife corridor, and that the remaining land, if developed, conform to the town of Ithaca's comprehensive plan, in that 30% of any housing be affordable for people earning under median income for the town of Ithaca. Not included in the petition, but key in my mind, is also the protection of the old farmhouse and barn property and the beautiful old willows, and concern for the stream that runs through the property. We neighbors believe that this area is too important in terms of big picture development in the town of Ithaca, and to merely leave its future to the will of the property owners as is, under urban sprawl type zoning with no special provisions for affordable and affordability or environmental protection is beyond concern. So encourage a proactive stance.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to address the board? Susan, could you hear that speaker? Okay.
Hello, my name is Linda Cotman, and I live at 210 Forest Home Drive. And I know this isn't on your agenda, but I'm discouraged by several years of people testifying in my neighborhood about the danger to pedestrians, to cyclists, to anyone who traverses that intersection. I invite you to come and see what's going on there today. It's terrible. People have no idea how to drive through that intersection. They're coming to move their kids into Cornell. It's a mess. And I know that it was a mess before they built the North Campus residential expansion, but it's even worse now. And we went through a very long public process. Some of you were probably there. I can't remember exactly who was here. People testified, told you about the danger. They told you about the need for a realignment so that the main traffic into Cornell goes into Cornell and not through Forest Home. And there was a memorandum of agreement. There were planning board recommendations. Everything was legitimized. I have a report from 2019 from our Forest Home Improvement Association that there was a plan for the intersection improvements. And then we find out through the Ithaca Voice that there's a memo that's been written that says, oh, it's in the interest of the traveling public not to do this. With no disclosure, no public hearing, no indication of why. It's pretty abysmal. It's disappointing. There's no transparency. I don't know, Sue Ritter, I guess, is at the town. So your highway guy wrote to the town. What about the rest of us? What about Cornell? What about the money they set aside to do this? What about all the public hearings and all the people who testified? You folks need to not drop the ball on this. There are a lot of people who are super discouraged who didn't show up now because they're so discouraged with how this went. I really implore you to do the right thing and follow through on your commitment on this memorandum of understanding to realign the intersection. And I invite you to come in the next few days and sit at that intersection for 5 minutes and see what's going on in Forest Home. It's really bad. Someone's going to get hurt. I've been saying that for years. That's all I have to say. Please, please revisit this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the board this evening?
Oh.
Evening, Herb Engman, 120 Warren Road. I'm here. That?
Yeah.
Maybe it's that. And I'm here tonight as president. It doesn't like me. I'm here tonight to speak as president of the Forest Home Improvement Association.
I would suggest that if you're not speaking, turn your mics off while we're entertaining members of the public, and then we can turn them back on for our session.
I thought maybe it was a protest against old timers coming back to talk with the town board. We, I guess we're okay now. We were really disappointed to read in the Ithaca Voice that there had been a joint announcement that the MOU for the Craddock Lane and Pleasant Grove Road intersection was going to be abandoned. And it's very strange. The press release said, the assessment found that the current alignment is preferred by most motorists. Well, yeah, that's what we've been saying for 20 years. We know it's preferred because it's the easiest, it's the straightest. What we want is the realignment so that they'll begin to prefer another route to get to Cornell, not through Forest Home. So the traffic study that was done simply proved our point. The press release also indicated that only the motorists' needs were being considered. There was nothing to say, what about the people that are trying to get up Pleasant Grove Road on bicycles or pedestrians? And now you've got the assisted bikes with the electric motors so that more and more people can get up these steep hills now. So it's even more of a problem. And this is the only idea, the realignment of the intersection, that has any hope of reducing traffic in Forest Home. There is not one other idea out there that might accomplish that. The other thing is that now we understand there's going to be a joint town-county study of the intersection to get some independent ideas about the realignment. But then why was the joint press release sent out saying that the MOU was not going to be honored? That's backwards. You wait till you get your information first before you then say, okay, we've got information, now we aren't going to honor the MOU. So the whole thing is so strange that I would like to suggest that the town board take control of the situation, because it just doesn't make any sense, and it's been, I think, mishandled. And I would like to see the town board pass a resolution saying that we reassert that the MOU should be honored and that the Craddock Lane, Pleasant Grove intersection be realigned, and instruct staff to keep working on it and ask the county to keep working on it until an acceptable realignment is made. Thank you.
I'll be very brief. Yeah, I'll be very brief, probably less than 3 minutes this time. I'm Alec Nading. I live on Fairway Drive in Forest Home. And I'm here to speak in support of everything that Herb Ingman just said. And it was said previously about the Craddock Farm and Pleasant Grove realignment and the abandonment of the memorandum of agreement. I too was really dismayed to hear about that. I think, again, we're talking about safety primarily, but I think secondarily, and probably just as important to me, and I think should be to all of you, is taking into account all of the different ways in which people commute and transit through our town. As you probably know, this is one of several parts of the town of Ithaca where pedestrian and bike options are wanted. And I realize that this is partly because of jurisdictional sort of borderline between town and county and whose roads are whose. But considering the popularity of this particular area and the way in which it has formed a corridor between Northeast Ithaca and Lansing, a major commuter area, not just for automobiles, but for bikers and walkers, primarily to Cornell, but also into the city. I think it's really important that, as was said earlier, that we think proactively as a town about how to make this the most welcoming space for all the different ways in which people are, and not just to favor motorists when planning decisions are made. That makes good safety sense, public health sense, and of course, environmental sense. And while I have time, I'll also echo my support for the petition regarding the Phoenix golf course. I think that it's really important to take a strong stance about the land use there. The current owner has not been a terrific neighbor to us. We would really like to see whatever becomes of that space be as beneficial to as many people as possible, while of course recognizing. Thanks.
Presentation. So you know, most of us love our work. We would like to see people.
Yeah. They're speaking.
Stuff like that. You know,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, not to
Everyone
repeat.
just missed everything I just said. We're going to now turn to the weatherization project.
Oh, I didn't speak. You didn't call on those of us who are zoomed in.
Connie, did you want to address the board?
Yes,
Okay, we'll give you 3 minutes.
okay. I basically support what my fellow neighbors have said and Herb. I'm in favor of the Craddock Lane realignment to divert traffic away from our historic roads, which are already congested, and this will in turn improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians. I think everyone else has filled out and what I would have said, and basically I concur with them. So the situation is dangerous up here, and I think the town should take control of it and find a good solution. Whatever that solution is, find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Sorry we missed you
Yeah,
there.
well, I didn't know what the protocol was. Okay.
Dan, do you want to set the stage for the presentation?
Sure.
Susan, you can hear us fine now, right?
I think a lot of you know, we hired Bell and Spina Architects to come and do what we call the weatherization study of this facility. They did this in partner with Tatum Engineering as well. We looked at, insulating effects. We looked at heat loss. We looked at air sealing areas for air sealing. We looked at the windows, which was big. We also looked at the LED lighting package as well. So this is a culmination of the months and months worth of study that Bell and Spina and Tatum have done. Diana Elliott is here today. Yasi, you're with Tatum Engineering, correct? And I believe Doug is in the virtual world in Zoom. So we do have a presentation. They have a presentation. And I guess I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at our report.
I think you're gonna have to speak just a little
Yeah,
louder.
okay.
Slide that.
So to summarize what I'll be speaking about tonight is the existing conditions. And then the energy efficiency bundles, basically the scope that we looked at. And then Yossi will speak about lighting study. So the objective for this study was, well, before embarking on the mechanical improvements that were identified in the report in 2022 to improve the exterior envelope so that those upgrades to the mechanical system would have even more benefit. We were given the objective of improving energy efficiency, but no specific performance target, and just general improvements to. So the existing conditions from the plan that's up there, you can see the different eras that were constructed. So the portion that we're in now was the original portion of the building built in
1908 to 1910. The kind of workroom area was built in the 30s. Then the back part was built in the 60s and updated in 2000. And I should also mention that the post office portion of this building was not a part of the study. So Tatum and Valentina came to review the existing conditions thermally. So they did a blower door test and we had our infrared camera. And these work in concert to identify air leakage. This is in depressurization. So we see the blue purpley outline around the windows as air infiltration. Here in the vaulted lobby, because the attic is not insulated and the windows are very leaky, all that cold air is coming in through the lighting fixtures. And then that's the bottom of the door, so you can see all that air there.
What?
In the workspace, I pushed up a ceiling tile and we could see that the perimeter of the roof was not sealed. So we see that even from the floor coming through the ceiling tile. On the right, this is the window sash. Looking at it from the exterior, this is under pressurization. And you see that white spot is heat escaping. And then back on the inside, in depressurization, the purple is seeping under the sill. At the top of the wall in the 1930s era assembly, we have some studs that are cold. So we see those as well as in the 2000 vision. Air leaking under the sills and around outlets, which is pretty typical in construction that wasn't built to be high performance. Right? On the roof, we see that leakage through at the edge of the deck coming up in these high hot spots and at the curb as well. And then at the foundation, that hot spot is because, you know. So the options we investigated to improve the windows started with air sealing. So this would be going around the outside with foam. The next option is interior storm windows. If you look closely, there is another unit on the inside. And in our bundles, we proposed that like each of these would build on the air sealing. So all of these would include air sealing, not one of the others. Restoration. Restoration is if you take your existing unit and replace the glass, make it more airtight and reinstall it so you have the exact same look. And replacement. So replacing is getting rid of the unit that is already there, putting a modern unit in. It may have different materials. It may have a slightly different aesthetic. This is generally discouraged by the State Historic Preservation Office. So going through the energy efficiency bundles, the good was the easiest and most cost-effective to implement. This includes air sealing around the historic windows, fenestration, the roof perimeter, and along the party wall with the post office. This also means that the historic windows would no longer be operable because where the weight pockets are, that would all be filled with foam. We would add insulation at the attic and restore the attic window. Where that the better bundle is a little more involved and a little bit more costly. So to everything in the good bundle, we're adding interior wall insulation at the offices over here, the interior storms that I talked about, and separating the lobby zone mechanically. the interior storms and the historic part, air sealing along the post office wall. And the best, instead of the interior storms, it's a window restoration. And the other points are the only difference here is that actually the unprotected part could have replacements. So that's what. I should also mention that the flat roof was not considered for any new insulation because that was recently done. So that could be increased at the next time that it's re-roofed. And the lighting was not included in the cost for the energy efficiency bundles. So here are the breakdown of the different bundles, the payback. So ECM is energy conservation measure. So you can see with the little, right? With the little X's, what is included in each bundle, the description, the cost, the energy savings, and then converting that into a cost, and then the years of payback. So air sealing is pretty obviously an easy one to do. It's paid back in 4 years. Insulation, there's a couple different levels there, and that increases payback, obviously, because it's a more expensive package with the higher R value. Insulating the attic roof is also a pretty quick payback, less than 7 years. And windows, each of the window options are listed there. With good being at 190, better 109, the best 154, and replacement windows 126. So even though you have a better payback on the replacement windows, we did not recommend this just because it would be changing pretty sound windows that could be restored. And I think you would have a challenging time getting that approved from the historic preservation. So I will pass it on to you, Steve.
Want to make sure that everyone knows, just like this. And
And
we
it's on your
apologize to those who are on YouTube. I don't think we got the presentation in advance to be able to show it. Next time we'll try to make sure that those on YouTube can also see the presentation that we're seeing in person.
Maybe before we get into any of the lighting, if there's any question, the envelope part of the report.
And one thing that maybe Will mentioned, there's recommendations for where we would go after grant funding. Since this is, you might be covering that later. You're covering that later. Grant opportunities.
I wasn't gonna cover
Okay,
that.
so just so the board knows that we are actively looking at what grant opportunities might be, especially since this is a historic building. There's some monies that might be available. It would probably be part of the CFA process at some point. Yeah, probably next year. Okay. I just wanted to mention that since there's some dollar figures.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I had a hard time seeing the tables well enough to know what the respective payback periods were for the 3 scenarios that were referenced. Can you summarize those briefly?
And they are in what you got sent.
Okay.
And they're on your desktops right now. on the
But they were
chat.
also sent out last week. Just so you know.
It might help for the folks on Zoom for the record, so that if you have an easy answer to that would help.
Well, so the quickest paybacks, as I said, are the air sealing, the insulated attic roof. The other options, the wall insulation, begins at 90 years with the higher insulation value going up. to
So that's actually 90
90 years.
90 payback.
And then for the windows, it's a long time, but if you're committed to decarbonization, this will reduce your energy.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, you mentioned in the, I think it was the goods, I'm looking at the report, page 19. Of the report. So you mentioned this in your presentation, that under the good, that the historic windows would be fixed and not operable, because you're gonna fill the voids. Insulation, I've just assumed that the historic windows are inoperable now, because they're so old, they've been painted over, so that really wouldn't be much of a change. But we're not using historic windows at all now.
I don't think so.
I was told that one person
that's what
like
I'm saying.
opened their window, but
Oh, okay.
One, I think that would have an emergency. I think I was told there might be one window.
We're talking about those aspects of window replacement, you know, should there be an emergency window, all that stuff. That's been in discussion. Obviously, more details once we actually start.
Well,
I'd also like to look at this thing that some of the things have 6-year paybacks and some have 4 years. And some have 100-year paybacks. And I'm wondering, is the payback like a proxy for the embodied energy, like glass and the foam that's being used? Like, why would we consider something like a 100-year payback?
well, this didn't include embodied carbon, if that was your question. But as I said, if you want to reduce your carbon emissions, this would reduce your overall loads on the building.
I mean, one of the big things we've been talking about, we obviously enacted the Green New Deal. We want to be in the forefront of, you know, upgrading our facility. We do fully understand that some of these payback periods are quite long. One of the bigger targets that we're going for is eventually, you know, when and if we get there, talking about electrification of this facility and stuff along that line. We want to have a really high energy efficient shell. It's less load on the equipment. It's just less load overall. So some of the paybacks might seem quite lengthy, but when you start adding in new mechanical systems to feed the air and to feed the heat into this facility, you're going to get more bang for your buck. So, I mean, these are the conversations that we're having behind the scenes. And I think, like Rod said, we're looking at funding opportunities to kind of progress this forward.
any other questions before we proceed? Okay.
I don't know.
So I didn't have a lot of slides on the lighting portion, but basically in summary, most of the areas in this building could use lighting replacement. So a lot of the lights are outdated. From a controls perspective, there's not a whole lot of operational controls over the lighting for various areas of the building. Some areas have lower lighting levels than what are recommended. Some areas have higher lighting levels than what would be recommended. So all of that's in the report, but I think kind of at the high level, you know, we're looking at a pretty substantial lighting renovation for the building. Kind of on the tune of, you know, $250,000 to do the entire building. That work could be done in phases. I mean, you can certainly, you know, work on certain smaller sections of the building at a time. It does not have to be done all at once. And so I think in general, our replacement is kind of a combination of replacing some of the bulbs within the fixtures using LED relamping technology, And then in other cases, it's replacing the entire fixture. And I think there's some other benefits that we could see from that, like, for example, in the ceiling out here in the lobby, Diana showed the air leakage through those can lights at the top of the domes. By replacing those, we could actually also get some air sealing at the same time in those locations. So a lot of that was thought about as well in the report.
And is Doug chiming in as well?
Doug, are you there?
You don't know?
He should be on.
He's here. I just didn't know if he was also.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about next.
Not be going in the lobby, just because you see how these bulbs come down the marble, and burning that out, it would just change the look, change the bulb, so that was not considered, to be clear. Next step.
Can I just interject there? And I think what you briefly mentioned, maybe to some of the laymen in the room, is we would create a different zone. So even though the lobby would not get the insulation, as it is right now, when the heat when the building calls for heat, they heat that lobby just as much as they heat this room. It doesn't make sense. So that room would be isolated. It would have its own zone. If you keep it at a more moderate, without the insulation, because we love the marble.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty much what we're looking at.
So next steps would be the town's decision on if any of these bundles appeal to you, and then moving forward to design.
And I know some of us have had a chance to look at some of this data through this management team meeting. Or anyway, so my guess is we'll bring this to Public Works at some point when we have to make some, I guess we're getting close to needing to make some decisions. This is really just an update. We're not taking any action tonight, so it's a chance to ask questions. We can come back to this. I know there's a lot of information in that report. So it's not meant for you all to absorb it just in one.
One more question. First of all, hi Yossi, I work for Tatum Engineering. The lighting upgrade would be an improvement in the facility because you're gonna look at the brightness and the color, and some pictures are broken. But did you calculate the energy savings from the lighting upgrade?
We did not. I believe that's in the Flex Tech report.
Okay, so you just
2022, there are some estimates
use that number?
on savings,
Okay,
but because this is kind of like high level looking at fixture replacement, it was hard to estimate the actual saving without going further into the design and having some selection of replacements. Kind of a chicken and the egg kind of situation.
okay, thank you.
Other questions, Margaret?
Much. I want to go back to the estimates and payback slide and the conversation about why would we do this if it takes so many years to recoup the cost? And I appreciated your response, which was you're saving on energy use and therefore carbon emissions. I'm wondering, I see that you have annual savings in energy use. I'm wondering if there's been any conversion to estimate emissions from this.
We didn't look at the carbon emissions. And also I should mention, these calculations were simplified in Excel. If we look at like a whole building energy model that would consider the upgraded mechanical that Dan mentioned, then it would see how these ECMs interact with each other. This is just you know, you have these set point temperatures, you improve the windows, this is how it behaves. So there, it may become a more efficient system.
Other
The
questions?
overall, just interject real quick, the overall strategy that we had from day one was, this is the approach that we currently take, is let's get the exterior of the building. Let's get the exterior up to where it needs to be. And then we'll look at the mechanical systems. Because right now, I mean, as an engineer, if we did mechanical systems right now, we'd be doing a lot of heavy modeling, trying to figure it out. And I feel like once we get the weatherization complete, we'll have some real world modeling, and if it be that, we can size these systems more appropriate. So it's kind of a step process.
Other questions or comments? So,
I was just gonna say, I noticed for the air sealing the windows and attic windows, gonna be a payback of about 190 years. So I was just thinking that, see us in our quad centennial celebration, celebrating the completion of the payback.
somebody will be celebrating. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for your presentation. Dan, what did you see as next steps? I do think Public Works at some point might want to dive into this.
Yeah, I mean, the CIP does have some design work for next year to start looking further into this. As part of that, yes, probably take it to the Public Works Committee as a way to kind of vet these options a little further and give guidance to the architect on how we want this.
And maybe part of that can be sort of the phasing that was in your head of thinking over the next probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And pair that with some of the grant opportunities that come up.
Yep, absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So seems like we're doing okay. Oh, great, Doug. Okay, we saw your note, Doug. Doug wasn't able to unmute. But we're glad you were here.
Be going on with this thing. Keeps creating unencrypted control connect.
We'll talk to John. Okay, moving on. So you've been hearing us talk about community choice aggregation for a while, 2 years, 3 years. So it's now named Tompkins Green Energy Network. It has its own logo. And Hillary Swartwood put together a memo that got sent out along with the local distributed energy resource plan that we want to take a look at more fully in September at the September board meeting, hopefully pass a resolution adopting that local distributed energy resource plan. So tonight is really just to see if you have some basic questions, to show you the timeline for this. I think that you've heard us mention the community choice aggregation. There's different levels.
Yeah, I'm just gonna suggest that this meeting, turn off your microphones unless you're speaking. It's gonna be a lot easier.
This keeps saying loading resources. And all
Yeah.
sorts of funky stuff.
I don't know about that, but I just know how feedback works, and that's.
So basically, community choice aggregation allows municipalities, if you adopt it, to buy power for residents. Residents can opt out. We are taking it a step further by hopefully incentivizing and finding ways for people to invest in local energy resource opportunities. So that's what this local distributed energy resource plan is really all about. So let's turn to the memo and just walk through parts of the memo because it's fairly detailed, but I think it. So Hillary, I don't know. Do you want to? I can't remember what you and I talked about. I'm not putting you on the spot. Do you want me just to walk people through the memo?
What?
What you want me to walk people
Sure.
through the memo? Okay. But before I forget, we're hoping that you can all participate in a YouTube Zoom informational meeting on August 23rd. It would be from 4 to 5:30. That's when we'll go into some more detail. We're inviting both city council members and Ithaca Town Board members to participate in that informational session with local power, who have been working with us for the past couple of years. We'll also be open to the general public. We're not doing that tonight, so we're hoping you can all do August 23rd, 4 to 5:30. It will be recorded. So if you can't be available August 23rd at 4, you'll have an opportunity to view that presentation after the fact. So let me just point out a few things that Hillary has mentioned. So when you adopted enabling legislation last August for us to move forward on community choice aggregation, since then, the Public Service Center has changed some of their rules. So in essence, we've already taken the most important step. There's nothing else we need to do about that. This spells out the more complex things in terms of the distributed energy resource plan and how that would work. It would not be, certainly the town would, in fact, if you look on the second page, it spells out responsibilities. So we would have a CCA administrator who identifies what they would do, and it says what the town of Ithaca would do. We would continue to be part of this core team that's been meeting for quite some time to help oversee the process. Rich and I and Hillary sit in on those meetings along with city folks. Down the road, we're hoping that other towns in the county will join us. CCA can move forward even if the DER part is slow to take hold because you're still you're purchasing local and purchasing energy on behalf of your citizens. Let me see what else I want to call attention to in this memo. We did not send you the legal documents. They're pretty straightforward. You know, obviously we're starting to involve Susan Brock more fully so she can wrap her head around this. We had an initial conversation that Susan was part of with local power, just so she could understand what this distributed energy resource plan was all about. Rich, what can you think to add? It covers the types of DERs. You know, it could be microgrids, nanogrids, heat pumps, solar arrays, battery storage, EV charging. So there's a number of potential DERs.
Yeah, I can only reflect on the major questions that I have were related to definitions of shares and equity. And we've been sort of going back and forth with this with Paul Fenn, who is local power. He is in the running to be the CCA administrator. And what he told us was that the agreements related to distributed energy resources are going to be customized to the individual sites. There's no boilerplate agreement, which is why you wouldn't see, if you were to look in the DER plan right now, you wouldn't see a template for an agreement necessarily, because that's going to be determined by the site owner, by the energy system developer, the investors and so forth. So those are subject. The PSC doesn't have any oversight over that component of this whole thing. That is going to be left up to the site owners and the investors with some sort of municipal involvement, just in terms of we're going to be able to see agreements before they're ratified. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of detail about the DER, the investment component in the agreement right now, because it's going to change from site to site.
Hillary, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you guys.
And just make sure when you do speak, since we're turning off and on microphones.
No, you guys covered everything I was going to talk about.
So do you have any basic questions? Again, we're gonna encourage you to either watch on August 23rd or just watch the recorded segment afterwards. No.
Yeah, on the, in the memo, so I noticed towards the end, bottom of page 2, it looks like responsibilities of the CCA administrator and then of the town of Ithaca. I'm assuming that we're, since it seems like we're still working with the city, that the city would have the same responsibilities that the town of Ithaca has. They would be doing the same type of thing with,
Each municipality
Might
would
be
have
doing-
those same basic
of course.
responsibilities.
And then, I was trying to figure out this, but maybe you can just tell me quickly. So would something like the solar energy project being proposed for the John Rancich property on Route 79, would that become part of this?
Probably not.
I
Because
assume that's a commercial developer, and I don't think that they're open to outside investors.
Okay,
this would be, so I'm trying to think, some examples that have come up. So say a neighborhood decides to join forces and put in geothermal. They would work with the local administrator to figure out how to fund that and make it happen. Which can you think of other examples? I guess there could be a neighborhood solar array
Mhm.
that neighborhood puts together.
so potentially if we did something at Eco Village.
Correct. Right. Other questions?
Just a comment, which is that this was recently, the DER plan was recently forwarded to Susan Brock, and I'm sure that at some point before our board meeting in September, Susan will weigh in with her comments, questions, and concerns.
And I think, Susan, we made the offer that if there needs to be another meeting with Paul Fenn, we can do that as you dive into the material. Okay. Any other questions at this point? So it's nice to call it something besides CCA. And yeah, it was fun to work on a name. And I don't think we showed you the logo yet. You'll see it on the presentation online. Okay, if we're ready to move on to item number 5, the resolution for fee reduction request. This is a demolition permit fee. The reduction would be $50. Remember, we passed a policy that there's a fee reduction review committee. We met, and we are recommending a reduction of $50 for this individual. The address is at the 555 Elm Street extension. In part, we felt this because of, we don't ask for a lot of financial information. But we whatever financial information we asked for, we got. We also know this is a veteran. So there were 3 things that were part of our deciding to recommend the $50 fee reduction. Would someone like to move approving the resolution for now?
I'll move that.
Is there a second? Am seconds, questions, comments?
I just
Rich?
was curious, what was the fee to have been before it was suggested to go to 50?
Marty, can you?
Fee would have been $100.
Thank you.
What kind of building is being demolished?
The building itself is not being demolished, only a portion of a system was being demolished for repair work.
A portion of the building?
No, a portion, a portion of the building system.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Rod?
Susan,
Can you add a sentence to the resolution stating the reasons for granting the request?
hold on, we couldn't really hear you. The basis that we made the determination. Susan, is that what
Could you add a sentence to the resolution stating the reason for granting the request?
Okay, so we can do that. It would be just taking the comments I just made and putting it into a sentence if folks are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So the first and second
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Moving on to item number 6. So Dan sent out a memo about the Pleasant Grove Forest Main History Evaluation. There's a map. So the resolution, and so we'll see if there's questions. The resolution would authorize the town to commence eminent domain action to acquire 3 easements in the Forest Home neighborhood on property owned by Cornell University to enable the town to proceed with immediate repairs to the sewer system. It's a fairly long resolution, but I'm going to jump to toward the end, where the attorneys for the town, if you pass this, are authorized to proceed to commence a proceeding to acquire the necessary permanent easements on Forest Home Drive parcel, the byway parcel, and the Pleasant Grove Road parcel on an expedited basis from Cornell University pursuant to Article New York's eminent domain procedure law, and obtain the right to immediately enter the parcels to commence repairs. And I think Dan's memo lays out pretty well that there have been a number of breaks in this area. They really do need to be repaired in a timely fashion. So would someone like to move the resolution?
I'll move that.
Will, is there a second?
I'll second
Rich seconds. So questions, comments? Rob?
Is it shown on the map where the? It looks like all the work is in.
That's correct.
Dan, did you turn on your mic? I just want to make sure that
Oh, I
people.
didn't have mine.
So Rob, do you want to repeat your question?
Is it shown on the map where the location of the new easements are? Because it looks like most of the work, or all of it is in the right of.
That's correct. All the work is in the right of way, both Forest Home and Pleasant Grove. Once you get to the top on Cornell campus, there's a small little piece that's actually on campus. So
That's only one easement.
yeah, there's 3 different parcels involved. So there's one easement per parcel
Okay,
to make a contiguous easement.
Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, so, I always said that I wanted to participate in some, eminent domain action with the town before I left, so looks like it's gonna happen. I was just wondering, I read through the resolution, I didn't get a chance to read the memo, but, had we asked Cornell for a, easement, and they're not giving us one? Is that why we're going for eminent domain?
It's a true statement. Well, what's in a general sense, we've been working with Cornell for about a year to try to acquire this easement. They take time, you know that. We awarded the project. Easements were just about to be signed, and there was an arbitration agreement that came down between Cornell and the unions, identifying that any easements that they sign or sign or give away, union staff or union contractors must be utilized in that easement. Unfortunately, that puts us in somewhat of a precarious situation with GML 103 and just requiring the fact that requiring unions to be used. And we had a lot of back and forth with our attorneys and such. And there's a lot of options put on the table about what we can and can't do. Unfortunately, we can't dictate that union labor must be utilized. That's kind of a big sticking point. We do, just for the record, we do require that prevailing wage rates are paid, and prevailing wage rates match union pay rates, just so everyone's aware of that. So this was determined to be kind of the method that we would go down to get this force main installed immediately, just due to the breaks and the issues that we're having. So in a general sense, that is.
Any other questions or comments? If we're ready to vote, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Moving on to our annual resolution, adopting a law to override the tax levy limit established in the general municipal law. If it's necessary, we'd just like to give ourselves options. We're still putting together the budget. So we don't have any figures to start sharing with you yet. Although Donna and I did meet, it's looking pretty good, that we're gonna be able to keep the increase at a reasonable level. So would someone like to move the resolution? Oh, this is a public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:31. Are there any members on Zoom waiting for us to speak? Or would the person in the audience here like to speak to the board on this topic? I'll wait a minute to close the public hearing. Any questions before we close the? Which did you?
We know what the tax cap is. this year?
Donna, we do know, you figured out the calculation. I don't think we put it in here. Do you remember what the tax cap would be for us?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm still playing with the pilot agreement number, so I don't have the exact figure yet.
It's a very complicated equation that you have to. Donna has a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah. It's a puzzle.
I will close the public hearing at 6:32. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Did we have
Unanimous.
a mover and seconder on?
Oh, gosh. Would someone like to move this?
I'll move that.
Rich, Pam seconds. Now we can vote. I've had a rough couple of weeks, so you can be forgiven.
Yes.
All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on to the consent agenda. Would someone like to move the resolution?
So move.
Rich, is there a second? A second? All those in favor of the consent agenda, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Just a few updates from me, and we'll see if anyone else has some updates. You got the correspondence sent to you. Just a reminder, if anyone is interested, there's an electric vehicle showcase tomorrow that the county is putting on at 3 o'clock at 72 Brown Road. I don't know, Joe, do you know if anyone planning on attending some public works? Hillary, are you planning on attending? Okay, great, good. We will be represented tomorrow. That's good. Just a reminder that we have our board management retreat on September 22nd. I'll be sending out more information about that. September used to feel far, far away. Not that far away anymore. I'm working on committee assignments for 2024. Probably at the September meeting, I'll start putting that around to see if anyone has any questions. I'm not anticipating a lot of changes. I have already met with the person who will be our new board member, presumably in January. So I'm factoring that in as well. We still need conservation board members. So if you know of anyone who might be interested in being on our conservation board, you can let them know how they contact Paulette, and there's a form to fill out. But I think we're down a couple of conservation board members. CJ, does that sound right? Conservation board member, yeah. 3, okay. Stella Frank was our planning intern this summer. One of the things she did, which was sort of a side project, because I asked her if she was willing to do it. So on our website now is a presentation about what we feel students should know about the town of Ithaca. And so we will be sharing that link with Cornell, IC, and TC3, but I think it's of value to anyone in Ithaca who's still like, what is the town of Ithaca? So she did a nice job. Encourage all of you to take a look at it. And so Stella, I know you're not listening, but we want to thank Stella Frank for that. And we'll put it in the next newsletter as well, right? Any other reports of officials or staff? Any committee updates that can't wait till our study session? I think you had your mic off, so Susan was looking quizzical. What's Bill saying? It was just the abstract we were talking about. Anything else? If not, I'm going to vote that we go into executive session to discuss litigation regarding two separate issues, the personnel history of a particular person and the acquisition of real property where disclosure may affect the outcome. I am moving that. Would someone like to second? Bill seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand. Aye. Unanimous. So I think the folks who are staying are Marty, CJ, Joe, I don't know that you need to